Hey everybody, this is Brian with Bear Cards 34, coming back with another top 10. This is my top 10 favorite cards from 1981. I'm going to start things off with some honorable mentions. I realized as I was getting into the 81 set that I was starting to find more and more players that I was a fan of when I started collecting who were still in the league in 1986 and 87, and so it's kind of hard to get a top 10. So there are a lot more honorable mentions than there probably should be. But these are a few of them right here. Big fan of Gary Fensick. And as you know from the earlier videos, if you've seen those, I'm always a sucker for the All-Pro designation. I think those always add a little bit to the card. And for Fensick, seeing his All-Pro card, really like that one. Love the Joe Green. He just seems to have a lot of great cards. And I'm a big fan of Doug Williams, especially I was really not a fan of his when his Washington Redskins took out my Chicago Bears in 1987. After the 87 season. That was Walter Payton's last game. So I kind of had a grudge against him, but I was so impressed with him in the Super Bowl that year against the Broncos that he won me over, and I've just really appreciated his career and what he's done since then. And so I really like that card, and I love the old Buccaneers uniforms. They're fantastic. So those are three cards that I really like. Now, one that I'll show, I mean, I've even seen this online sometimes. Russell Erxleben, it totally looks to me like Hulk Hogan if he never went to the gym. So that card I get a kick out of. A couple others that I really like. This is Carlos Carson. In 1983, he had like a 1,300-yard season. Really talented player, two-time Pro Bowler, and that's his rookie card. And when I collected cards in 1988, the 1,000-yard club card from the year before had him on that, and I always thought anybody who had a 1,000-yard club card was pretty great, so was really happy when I got that card in a pack as a kid. And then right here, Ricky Bell, this is his final card. You've seen me mention him in the other videos. I became a fan of his after I saw his NFL Films documentary, and so that's his final card there. And again, that awesome Tampa Bay jersey, love those old school jerseys. So this card came out in 1981, and that was his final year with Tampa Bay, the year that card came out. He was traded over to San Diego in 1982, but he only played in 4 games. He only had a couple of carries because by that point, they didn't know what was going on yet, but he was already having a lot of health issues, and it was keeping him from playing. So they put him on IR, and he never played again after that. Passed away, unfortunately, in 1984. Another card, big Steve DeBerg fan. When I was collecting with those early Pro Set and Score cards, he was with Kansas City. I always really liked his play. I liked his personality. He wrote back to me when I was a kid, autographed a couple cards. And one of my favorite cards of his, if you collected Pro Set back in the day, this is from 92. He had played with the Buccaneers from 84 to 87. Done fairly well there, all things considered. But he went back to them in 1992. And so this they had these Spirit of the Game cards for Pro Set, and there he is, kind of being a swashbuckling Buccaneer, totally, in character there. So I thought that was a pretty unique card, and like that one too, so I thought I'd throw that one in there. Okay, another one that's an honorable mention is this one right here. Mark, You Hurt Me, Brett Gastineau. He was a great quarterback sack specialist back in the day. Quite the character. Didn't crack my top 10, but I really do like that card. Another one that's like almost top 10 to me right here is this one. I love the Bears team leader card because of 2 players in particular, obviously James Scott and Len Waltershield. Those two. But then there's also happens to be Walter Payton and Dan Hampton during the rookie card year for Dan Hampton. Love the Walter image. He looks like he wants to run somebody over there, which I like. And as a giant Goonies fan, anytime you get a John Matuzak card who played Sloth in Goonies, I'll always love those. It also had a former Bears quarterback who did really well with the Raiders for a little while, played a long time in the league. Vince Evans, that's his rookie card. And another one that was one of my favorites is Charles White. He was a Heisman Trophy winner back in the day, won a national championship as well. So he had a great college career, but he really didn't do anything in the NFL. But then all of a sudden in 1987, he had a breakout when the Rams traded Eric Dickerson. He became the leading rusher in the league, and ironically, the number 2 guy, the leader in the AFC, was Eric Dickerson. So the Rams at the beginning of the year had both of the rushing leaders for the NFL that year. And then, because of Charles White having that great season, 1,000 yard club, Pro Bowl, and I remember him playing in that Pro Bowl, getting his rookie card and seeing him on the Browns was pretty cool back in the day. So I've always really liked that card. A couple more honorable mentions. We got John Hanna. I want to give some of the offensive linemen some love. I think that's a really nice photo, and it has the All-Pro. I always like this Lynn Dickey card. Yes, he's a Packer, but again, I like some of those like in-play game shots, and with him just kind of surveying what's in front of him. You got the lineman down. You got the probably 49er, I'm guessing, lining up against him. And then J.T. Smith as well. He was really good with the Cardinals when I was first started collecting in around 1987. And he led the NFL in 1987 in receiving yards, receptions with the Cardinals, went to a couple Pro Bowls. So I remember when I opened a pack and got him in there as a rookie card, I was very excited. And I always like this Jim Zorn card. He and Steve Largent, just such a good tandem right there. And with Steve kind of sitting on the bench next to him, always really like that card. In fact, I like this one too. This is probably from the same game, probably not too far off. It looks like you got the guy in the black suit right on the background there, and the blue bench in the background. So we got a picture of each of them there. And another one that almost made the list. I love that Jack Lambert card. I think that's a great image. And I will show these. So I had mentioned, I think in the last video, there are not a lot of action shots other than at the time there were record breaker cards that would show those. But 1981 had some really good super action cards which had some awesome images, and so I was really happy that they were doing these. Now it is true that the airbrushing is much more noticeable on these with their helmets on, but I really love that Tony Dorsett card right there. And there are a lot of really good ones. The Terry Bradshaw in action right there. I really like this Ted Brown, where you've got some people coming up to try to stop him. One of, if not the greatest punter of all time, Ray Guy, just kind of showing off the leg there. The John Jefferson with the catch, always like that one. And the Lester Hayes is great because it's just, he's caked in mud and Stickum. In fact, that might all be Stickum, let's be honest. I mean, he would just cake that stuff all over him, but you look at his pants, you look at his hands, they're just caked in that stuff. Even his helmet looks like it's got some of that guck on there. Wilbur Montgomery, underrated running back for the Eagles, like that one. And the Curtis Dickey right here is great. You see both the offensive and defensive players on the ground, and 62 seems to be kind of looking over, and there's Curtis Dickey making a run for it. He had a really good rookie season. Another one right here, Mike Pruitt. I think that's a great card against the Broncos. My guy, Otis O.J. Anderson, against the Giants coming down. And this one's my very favorite. I love this card. Al Bubba Baker looks like he's about to kill that Tampa Bay player right there. And just, is wrapped up over him. And it looks like he's about to come down on him with all his weight. So, love that card. Now we'll go ahead and get into my top 10. Okay, so to kick things off, my number 10, my 10th favorite card. And if you haven't watched these videos before, please be aware, these are not necessarily the 10 most valuable cards or the 10 best. It's just my 10 favorite, which obviously, anytime you're doing a list, it's very subjective. So these are the ones for me. The reason this one is in my top 10 is because of the bottom right there, we see Rulon Jones, the Broncos team leader with 11.5 sacks. So this is his earliest card. However, because it's in a team leader, it's not technically considered his rookie card. That would not come out until 1983. So this is his earliest appearance on a card. He went to my alma mater of Utah State. He was really, really good, had a really solid career, a couple Pro Bowls. I got to meet him in Logan, Utah, where he played his college ball. My parents, they drove me up from, my brothers and I, up to from Salt Lake to Logan to meet him. I got his Pro Set card autographed. Really nice guy. So I was always a big fan of his and happy to have that card. So that's my number 10. Number 9, the late great Dwight Clark. Has him as a wide receiver right there. That's his rookie card. He's known for having the catch and just being a very important part of those early 49er dynasty teams. So I always appreciated being able to have a rookie card of Dwight Clark. My next up, number 8, would be Alan Page. I think this is a fantastic looking card. It's got everything I'm looking for. It has the All-Pro. It has the Chicago Bears uniform, and it has a Hall of Famer. And I just think he looks mean. He looks cold, but he looks very mean and ready for business. So love that card. That's my number 8. My number 7 is the Hall of Fame great Kellen Winslow. One of my favorite tight ends ever. And when I say that, I mean, he was kind of at the end of his career when I was really getting familiar with him. But just the highlights, the game, the playoff game where he was like basically carried off the field in exhaustion because he just had such an amazing performance, gave every little ounce of energy he had. So really love that rookie card. And he does have a super action card here. It's not in my top 10, but I do want to kind of highlight that as well. Similar story for my next pick. So at number 6, that is Billy Sims, and that is my next favorite card. And again, an All-Pro. Just like Kellen Winslow, I was more familiar with Billy Sims after the fact. In fact, I think it was when I was familiar with him from his cards. I knew that he was a great player. I mean, if you look right here, he was a Heisman Trophy winner as well, and he had 1,300 yards as a rookie. So when I would get his cards early on, you'd see these 1,000-yard seasons, and then all of a sudden he didn't have cards anymore, and he just had a really, really bad injury. He was well on his way to having a Hall of Fame career before the injury. But there was a lot of talk about him when Barry Sanders was drafted by the Lions, and comparisons, obviously Heisman Trophy winning running back, number 20 with Detroit, doing really well. He also has a super action card, and I love that card. I think that's a great image right there. So for Billy Sims, just outside of my top 10 at number 6, great player. I think that's an excellent card. And then we'll jump into my top 5. So here is my number 5. One of my all-time favorite receivers, Art Monk. This is his rookie card. I remember buying one of those. I never pulled one in a pack, but I bought one at a card show, and I felt like I had just won the lottery. I walked out of there just feeling so proud, and it was in a really nice slab type, protective gear, and I just thought, wow, this card is special, and really, really was happy to be able to get that one. He's one of my all-time favorite players. At one time, the all-time reception leader. And next up, we'll go into my top 4, and 2 of them are kind of the same, and I've gone back and forth, but I'll go ahead and put this one. My number 4 is Walter right here. So this is my Walter, and that's the one I have in my binder with the set on the left, and the one on the right is part of my Walter Payton player run, and love that card. I think it's a great image. And I put it at 4, maybe it's 3, I don't know. My third is this one right here, his super action card. Again, I really like seeing the action shots, especially back then when there weren't very many. And so just being able to see that, his eyes and just getting ready for that run. You got the blocker out in front, you got a defender behind. And I think those are both great cards. So 4, 3, back and forth. I may change tomorrow and switch those up. Then we come into my number 2, and that's going to be this guy right here. A huge Dan Hampton fan, Hall of Famer. And the reason it bumps the Payton, because I do think the Payton cards look a little nicer, but I think the Hampton is a nice-looking card too. You just got him sitting on the sideline there, in those old-school jerseys with the neck pad. But I think just because it's his rookie card, and he was the very first person to ever write me back a TTM when I was a kid. It was the very first one I got, and it was an actual letter. I opened it up, and it was a letter from him, so I was thrilled. That made my day. So he's got a special place in my heart, and I remember when I went to a game in 2019 against the Lions, Dan Hampton was at the stadium, and he came out and cheered on the crowd before the game, and it was just really cool to be able to see him hype everybody up like that. So that is my number 2. And my number 1 is probably known by all of you by now if you're familiar with this set, but that would be not this card. This is the reprint, but that would be the Joe Montana. So this is the reprint from Topps Archive back in 2001. So here's the story with this. My favorite card is this one right here, the Joe Montana 1981 Topps, which is now slabbed. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I do show and tell videos, and I would do show and tell videos of the different sets that I had, especially, with a focus on the 80s. And I had all of the sets from the 80s except for 1981. and the reason I didn't have that set is that I was missing the Joe Montana card. So I had picked this one up, and I just put that in the binder to kind of fill it in, and that's where it still is. It's still in the binder. But I was short that one card, and a good friend of the channel who had been a fan of, or I don't know if he's a fan of, but he's a viewer of my channel. He's become a very good friend of mine in the hobby. And he has an eBay store now, Cards in the Closet, and I'll include a link to that if you guys want to check it out. He has a lot of great cards. He grades a lot of great cards and has had some really nice grades come back. But he's been a friend of mine, watches videos, comments on them, and he had heard that I was missing that card, and he reached out to me and gave me an offer for this card right here, ungraded at the time. And it was the kind of offer that it was like definitely like a friends and family member offer, where it was so low that I actually asked if I could pay him a little bit more than that, and he agreed to that and sent this one out to me. He had other copies as well. And so I got it. I was thrilled. I had the set. I did this show and tell video, and that just super made my day. This is one of my not just favorite cards of this year, but just ever, both because it's the great Joe Montana, but also because of the story and getting it from a good friend. So this is a very sentimental card to me as well. And I sent it in to get graded with a batch of cards, and I was hoping for a 7 and thinking somewhere between a 6 and a 7, and then it came back an 8, which really made my day. So I was thrilled about that. Everybody knows Joe Montana if you're familiar with football history, even if you weren't around back when he was playing. But multiple, Super Bowl MVPs, just one of the all-time clutch performers. Joe Cool. And before Brady, it was kind of like a lot of people were like, yeah, Montana's the best ever. And then it went to, is it Montana or Brady? And now it's Brady. And now it's will it be Mahomes? But I don't forget the old school guys too, like, Johnny Unitas and some of them. It all depends on the era. And if we're going to the era of, when Joe Montana played, he was the greatest quarterback. Now, there were other ones like Dan Marino, John Elway. You could argue as far as like talent, ability to throw, but in my opinion, just from the combination of success and wins and clutch performers, Joe was the guy. And so I love this card. This is my favorite card of 1981, and love that I have it. I had always wished they had made his card back in 1980. They made Steve DeBerg, which is good, but it would have been nice to have a Montana there. But since they didn't, this is his rookie card. Here's the back right here. He only threw for 96 yards as a rookie, but then he came in and had quite a bit of playing time in the 1980 season, and then the rest was history. So anyway, those are my top cards for 1981. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back with more videos in the near future, and as always, go Bears.